but it's not an easy thing because you have a gentleman here today presenting to you who's going to speak to you about leadership. And his qualifications as a leader are second to none in my world. Mr. Mayhew taught in this school for 28 years. Okay. He was, and I suppose you can blame him for it, he was certainly a mentor and leader for Mr. Nelson, myself, when we first started. But that was, I guess it's not even the end of the career, because he had also been leader of the Kewaunee County Special Ed Consortium. He had been a special ed teacher. He was a football coach. He's a football coach who is in the Wisconsin Football Coaches Hall of Fame. Prior to that, he had been in the military. While in the military, he was an officer in Vietnam. He had also been in the National Guard. He is in the Hall of Fame for the Wisconsin National Guard. He's in the Hall of Fame for St. Norbert's athletes. Essentially, a large portion of this man's life has been dealing with leadership, and leadership in multiple forms. So please give your attention undivided to Mr. Steve Mayhew.
No, I don't walk on water, okay? So, good afternoon. I want to thank Ms. Whitney for inviting me, and also thank Mr. Schmeling for a gracious introduction. So, I have a question. You're going to have a lot of questions from me today. I don't always expect a lot of answers, but perhaps. So if I was to ask you what you would choose, how many would choose pancakes? How many would choose waffles? How many would choose both? How many would choose neither? Okay. So what the heck do pancakes and waffles have to do with leadership? That's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So what is leadership? Anyone? What is leadership?
Accountability. Accountability.
Accountability. Anybody else? Sir?
Being able to guide others.
I'm sorry?
Being able to guide other people.
Being able to guide other people? Okay. Good. Anybody else? Miss Rubbish, you're squinching up you're wrinkling your forehead. You're going to have wrinkles like I have, okay? Do you have a suggestion? What is leadership? All right. If you put that question to Google, you'll get gazillion hits in a very few seconds. But really, what is leadership? What does it take to be a leader?
Leadership skills.
What are those?
Got to get people to trust you.
You have to get people to trust you. Good. Role model?
Standing up for what's right.
I'm sorry?
Standing up for what's right.
Standing up for what's right? Commitment? Okay. Excellent. Very good. What does it take to be a leader? Anybody? Confidence? Courage.
Accountability.
Accountability? Okay. Anybody else? Is it possible for each and every one of you in this room to be a leader?
Yes. Yes.
Well, if you all say yes, why couldn't you share with me what it takes? If you're a member of a team, can you be a leader even if you are not the most gifted athlete?
Yes.
If you are if someone else is elected captain of that team, can you still be the leader?
Yes.
If someone else is elected president of your class, can you still be a leader in that class?
Yeah.
All these positives. And what is leadership? We had more yeses and yeses and yeses than we had responses to what is leadership. Don't be timid. So after asking these questions, allow me to share this with you. You may have heard of Winnie the Pooh. Yes. And he has, on occasion, some wonderful gems. And you may have heard some of the advice that he has, but I particularly like this one. This is some advice that Christopher Robin gave to Winnie the Pooh. And really, it's good advice for all of us. Promise me you'll always remember that you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. In today's world of social media, it is sometimes difficult to remember that each one of us is braver, stronger, and smarter than we think. So what am I talking about? Where is this all going? Do you know who you are? Do all of you know who you really are? And you say, what is he talking about? I've lived inside this body for a number of years. I should know who I am. Do you know your likes? Do you know what you don't like?
Yep.
Do you know what you're good at?
Yep.
Do you know what needs improvement? Will that change?
Yes.
All of this has to do, all of those questions have to do with the idea of self-awareness. Now that sounds kind of scary. You've probably heard that term before in a very formal setting. But we're talking about recognizing and learning about who you are. So think about something. Think about what things were really important to you when you went into kindergarten. Can you remember back that far? No? No, I can't either. Okay. So, but do you think the same things that were important back then are as important today?
No.
No. There's a name for this, or a word for this. It's called impermanence. Well, that's a 25-cent word, isn't it? Huh? My goodness gracious, what's that? It's real simple. It basically is that nothing stays the same. Everything is constantly changing, and how we handle this is important to your growth and development. How do you handle change? Yes, the schedule might be changed or something of this nature. How do you handle those little itty-bitty things? But how do you handle the constant changes that are going through your minds and your experiences that you have? Nothing really stays the same. It's constantly changing. And so that is why we need to develop what we refer to as self-awareness. So I'm going to put this up. First of all, is there anything in your life that is not constantly changing? Is there anything that's not changing? Now here's self-awareness. Take a look at that definition. That's pretty heavy stuff. Essential trait of a great leader. By knowing your values, your personalities, your emotions, your habits, and how they affect your actions and the actions of others, you will be better able to make purposeful decisions, manage your strengths, and ultimately lead or help others to do the same. My goodness, is that what that's all about? If I happen to like pancakes over waffles, that's going to allow me to do that? Mercy. But that's, pancakes or waffles is doing what? That's just sharing some of your personal things that you like or things that you don't like. Now, everybody has their strengths or weaknesses. For example, I went to a basketball game the other night, and I saw that there are some of you that have the ability to be able to dribble the ball with both hands. Me, I had trouble dribbling with one hand. And there are some that could do math in their heads. I'm one of those guys that had to count on my fingers and toes. Okay? Some of us have strengths, some of us have weaknesses. We need to learn what those strengths and weaknesses are. So that means that you have something that you may want to work on. And when we talk about how they affect your actions and the actions of others, have you ever stopped to consider this? Have you ever asked yourself, what is it like to be on the receiving end of me? Not me, but each and one of every one of you. And that's just, again, a continuation of being self-aware. The Greeks recognized this. The Greeks came up with this a long time ago. Truly knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Truly knowing yourself requires a lot of serious effort. And there's no path, there's no books, there's really nothing that's going to help you get to where you want to go except yourself. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to give you handouts. It's not a test. It's for you. It's not for your neighbors. It's not for the teachers. It's just for you. And it's something that, take a look at, answer the questions as best you can, and you don't have to share it with anybody. You can if you want. But I'm hoping that some of these questions will be a guide to your own self-awareness. By having a better handle as to who you are, by being more self-aware, will help you with your decisions and make you more independent. And that all leads to being a leader. The questions are not just a one-time test. I would like to have you review them every so often and how things have changed. How many of you do journals? Is this the only hand up? Nobody does journals? I still do journals. What does that consist of? I have little booklets. Every now and then something happens, the experience. I'm a tour guide at Lambeau Field. Maybe I came across a certain situation. I can share with you that doing a tour for 21 very hard of hearing people, that's a different experience. And what are my reactions out of that? Doing a tour of 30 people who are blind is a totally different experience. So I would journal that, just my thoughts. You might do that, you might consider that. It's just for yourself. And go back and look at them every now and then. How have you changed? What have your attitudes done? You become more self-aware. You become more independent. So I'm going to have you go through your questions. And as you go through these questions, keep this in mind. The things that make me different are the things that make me. Each one of you is different. Each one of you has strengths and weaknesses. Own them. make sure they're yours. And don't worry about somebody else, what they may be doing. Because the things that make me are the things that make me. And of course, and then finally, don't ever forget this part as well. So we're going to pass these out. I don't know what the easiest way is. Let's start with pen. You don't have to fill these. Don't get pens and pencils out. You don't need to get them out just yet. This is stuff for you to take home. You don't have to turn this in. This is for you. You. So start with that one. I'll start this one from the back. Okay.
What relaxes me? Stress.
I wouldn't thought that one was
What stresses me? Relaxing. You should have what stresses me. You should have someone's I'm consensual. Okay,
You got about 10.
Oh, yeah, practice it. Don't get me in trouble.
I lifted this morning. First house. No. We just started. And Mr. K didn't know.
Oh, there's more questions. No, there's more. I'll have to think about it.
Oh, we got a full house. Full house tonight. Full house tonight. Well, the first one got
When you get your second sheet, that just kind of drives home the point that you don't have to share this with anybody. You know, when the question is, what are some of the dumbest misadventures you've been on? You don't have to share that with anybody, right?
I'm gonna pass it back on the sheet. They got more to go.
Yeah, it's the second sheet that's
Come
coming.
on, Schneider. Schneider behind again. It makes me afraid.
You guys kidding?
I'm already.
Okay? Any final questions that you may have for me at this time? Sir?
Through your years of coaching, what was the biggest or the most important thing you felt was in your leaders? What were you looking for in your leaders?
Integrity. Integrity would be number one. And the ability to just have, as somebody mentioned earlier, have the other team trust in their leadership, that they could assume it. It wasn't always the yeller or the screamer that was the leader. But it was somebody that could, when things were not going right, when practice was falling apart, when the game was falling apart, there would be that individual that could just, to use the term, rally everybody around them, kind of get their heads together and say, we got to keep going on this regardless. That comes from integrity, comes from a lot of that individual's self-awareness, that he wasn't concerned about what other people thought. He was more concerned about the team as a whole. And as a result, you know, we were fortunate, I believe, here at Algoma. We had a lot of leaders. You've experienced it, I've experienced it, the coaches have experienced it as well. And it's something that, as coaches, I feel very important, that we have a responsibility to try to share some of that, because you are the folks that are taking our places. As you move on in your careers and your lives, you are the folks that are taking our places, and it's important to us that those leadership qualities get passed on. Not only for yourselves, but for your families, for our neighbors, for our communities. So I hope I answered your question. Very well. Any other questions you may have? Sir?
In your roles of leadership, what kind of things did you do to get the people that you led trust you?
I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of reading of examples of leadership. And, you know, everybody has good points, everybody has flaws. But I selected, perhaps in my reading and biographies, of examples, not just heroic per se, but leaders. One of my, and I'm dating myself because I'm old anyways, one of the gentlemen that I really adhered to was Robert Kennedy. Not so much John. He has obviously some very leadership qualities as well if you read his story. But I selected Robert Kennedy. And so reading what they did when they were faced with certain things and how they handled those things was a benefit to me as well. And so I tried to emulate some of those. Okay? Did that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Well, if not, on behalf of myself, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you. And share some of these thoughts. You'll see me every now and then around here. You tracksters, I'll be there checking you all in when you come to the track meets, so make sure you have everything that you're supposed to have for a good track. Take care of yourselves.
You too.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.